Hello friends, my name is Carol Castleberry. I am the ISS for Behavior and Autism for the Pacific West District of Dodea. I'm here to discuss the Extended School Year, or ESY, and the Dodea rules and regulations regarding it. The first thing we need to do is define what ESY is. ESY services are special education services and related services provided to a student with a disability beyond the normal Dodea school year in accordance with the student's IEP, are at no cost to the parents, and meet the standards of the Dodea school system. ESY services must be provided only if a child's IEP determines that the services are necessary for the provision of FAPE, free and appropriate education to the child. Dodea may not limit ESY services to particular categories of disability or unilaterally limit the type, amount, or duration of the ESY services. ESY services are only necessary to provide a free and appropriate education when the CSE determines that the progress and instructional benefits for a student will be significantly jeopardized without the provision of the extended school year services. The CSC should consider the need for ESY services at least annually. This generally happens at your review meeting, your annual review meeting, but also it can be done at any time upon parent request. As with any good decision makings, we need to consider the data. This is a list of the data sources that should be considered and reviewed. Historical data, review of the current and previous IEPs, documentation of regression and recoupment time, documented clinical evidence, classroom observations, progress notes, standardized assessments, student work samples, behavior logs, parent interviews, parent input including outside reports, evaluations, and attendance information. These are three of the defining factors that have to be considered when you're looking at eligibility: regression and recoupment, degree of progress, and emerging skills, breakthrough opportunities, or what we call the window of opportunity. We'll discuss each of these in the next slides. Regression and recoupment. The CSC must present evidence of substantial regression of skills caused by a school break and a failure to recover those lost skills in a reasonable time following the school break. What we're talking about here is a regularly scheduled school break, such as any holiday break, spring break, those kind of things. This does not take into account remote services. Remote services is not considered a school break because the students should still be considered receiving their services. But when we're looking at a regular school break, we would look at regression, which is a substantial loss of critical skills being addressed on the student's IEP, and the recoupment, or the recovery, which is the ability to recover a loss of instructed skills within a reasonable time following a normal school break. The CSE determines the criteria exemplifying reasonable recoupment time based on the data collection. Degree of process, which was the second one, the CSC reviews the student's progress on all IEP goals and objectives and determines one of these three things. The rate of progress is such that without extended school years, the student will not be able to receive educational benefit from his or her educational program during the regular school year. The nature and/or severity of the student's disability prevents the student from receiving benefit from the educational program during the regular school year, and the extent to which interfering behaviors impact student progress throughout the school year. What are interfering behaviors? For example, any ritualistic, aggressive, or self-injurious behaviors. And the third was the emerging skills, breakthrough opportunities, or what we might talk of as a window of opportunity. The CSE reviews all IEP goals to determine whether any of these skills are at a breakthrough point. When skills are at a breakthrough point, the CSE determines if the interruption in services and instruction will prevent the student from receiving benefit from his or her educational program during the regular school year without the services of ESY. The time of services during ESY cannot exceed current school year IEP services. ESY services may look different from the student's regular school year services and may be provided in another location. The CSE must carefully consider the frequency and duration of services necessary to address the identified needs and purpose of the ESY instruction for each student. ESY services are provided by qualified personnel, and progress reports are submitted in accordance with specification of the IEP and the CSE. Concerns noted during remote learning instruction may not necessarily be considered for ESY, but may be considered for compensatory instruction once school resumes. That being said, we understand the duress in which some students are during our remote services, and the information from the parent is very important as part of the CSE team that needs to be considered when making these ESY eligibility determinations. ESY will be offered to eligible students regardless of the operational status of schools, which means it could happen if we're in remote learning environment or in a school setting. If parent rejects the ESY services, the CSE must document the rejection along with the rationale provided by the parent in the student record. In other words, we get it. We live overseas and we understand that some parents may want to travel during their summer break. Maybe you want to go home for a period of time, and it is not a time in which you would be accessing these services. However, we must consider it, make the student eligible if they meet those requirements, and it must be offered to the parents. If the parent decides that they will not accept the services, then it needs to be written down and it will be part of the student's IEP record. When we're dealing with students in special education, we call it an IEP for a reason, because it's an individualized education program. Each student's IEP should be uniquely their own IEP that meets their unique needs. Therefore, the types of questions that are generally generated about ESY, and indeed most IEP situations, are very particular to your student's own unique needs. The first person that you should contact about any information about your student's IEP is your student's IEP case manager for any additional support, questions, or guidance for any reason, but most specifically for this presentation for extended school year. The DSO, the district office, will work closely with your IEP case manager to make sure that all of your questions and needs are answered. Thank you for your time.